opportunity to some.
A very good morning to you out there. You are on to Daybreak on Edo Broadcasting Service Television. Reloaded. EBS Nothing Else is Better. And on this beautiful Wednesday morning, we are looking at World Press Freedom Day. This is something that concerns us and I believe concerns you too. We are going to be looking at this issue and we have a gentleman in the house, the number one journalist in Edo State. I'm talking of no other person than Comrade Festus Aleke JP. He's the state chairman, Nigerian Union of Journalists, Edo State. It's so good to have you with us. Good morning.
Good morning, Joy. How are you doing today?
Fine, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
You are a thoroughbred journalist through and through. So we are happy to have you because we know you will give us what we want, the information we want because they are at your fingertips. We want to, World Press Freedom Day. Every journalist, we desire this. We want to be free to do our work, to perform our responsibilities, to carry out our duties. But, sir, can we categorically say, from your own perspective, is there actually press freedom?
Well, I want to say it's 50-50. 50-50 in the sense that United Nations recognize the fact that journalists have a lot to play in ensuring international peace and development. And that was why at the UN National Assembly, it was resolved that there should be a day set aside for us to reflect if there's actually press freedom. So to us, it's 50-50. There is press freedom at 50%, and there's no press freedom at 50%. So at the moment, that is the way we can describe it.
Okay, as the watchdog of the society, journalists are believed to be the ones in charge. That is, they put authorities on its toes to ensure that those placed in positions of authority, they do what is right. They perform their duties. They carry out their promises. And the lives of those they are governing are not affected negatively by what they do. But over the years, we've come to see cases whereby journalists, I would say, is it either out of fear or the economic situation, tend to backtrack and do something unethical. And at the end of the day, they are no longer given the freedom, even like you said, 50-50, even that 50 that ought to be something they can still work on and be free, it's even denied because there are some unethical behaviors and unethical actions that they carried out that negate that freedom, that stops them from getting information that they ought to get to be able to make lives of citizens better by furnishing them with information. Because when you have a situation whereby you have you are privy to a kind of information that will help the public, but is against certain officers, those are the top, and they threaten you, or out of fear or out of having to collect money, you tend to withhold such information, thereby putting members of the public at risk. How would you marry this?
There are different ways to this that you have just raised down. You have state actors and non-state actors. First, the aspect of state actors has to do with the general public. And you find a situation where an institution is in place, and that institution tries as much as possible to ensure that you don't practice what we were taught in school. We were taught that we should remain the watchdog of society. We are taught to unearth so many issues that has to do with both government and individuals, because it's our responsibility, and that's what we are engaged to do. But again, you have some of these actors that come in form of threats. You have societal threats, you have individual threats, you also have threats even from government and some affluent persons in the world. They can decide to put serious threats to forestall or rather prevent stories from being used. We have had cases where some of our colleagues have been killed in the line of duty. We have also had cases where some of our colleagues have been arrested. in the line of duty. Most of our colleagues too have been thrown into prison. So I'm talking generally across the entire world. Just today, I was browsing through the internet. I saw that the United Nations issued a release saying that there's no press freedom for United Nations. So I have it here because I'm talking to the public, and it says that journalists are being targeted both on and offline. And this was tweeted just this morning. And then it was said that they are routinely harassed, intimidated, detained, and imprisoned. And that's what journalists are currently going through. So to me, there's really no much about press freedom. But let's come back to our own set in Nigeria. Nigeria, yes, we have a bit of press freedom simply because we are operating democracy. There are some stories we take today now. You can't take it during the military era. Like the man who is our president today. When he was president, they record that he jailed so many journalists. You remember, through Decree 2 and many others, journalists were sent to prison. But today he just relaxed and allows us to do our work because he can't return back to 1984 when he was there as military head of state. You know, then he was a dictator then. But today you have the National Assembly in place, you have the state houses of assembly in place. It's full-blown democracy we are operating in Nigeria. And because of that, you can't just singularly pick up a journalist today and put such journalists in jail. Because there are due process. So to us as journalists, what we keep telling people is, for you to come and arrest us and put us in jail, if there's a story you think we have taken and that didn't go well, we can do a rejoinder. That's what we are saying. If there are stories you felt is serve as an infringement, you know, on your person, and then you also believe that this story is not right, and then there are better ways for these stories to be corrected. And what are the ways? You require the journalists to go back and do the right thing. And that's why in the journalism profession, we have ethics and disciplinary committee. Their duty is to control the excesses of some of our colleagues. Yes, I won't say that we are 100% free. You still have some journalists too who also go out to engage in frivolities, they engage in atrocities, they carry stories out of malice. So, but we have a body, a committee whose duty it is to checkmate the excesses of journalists. So we want to appeal to the relevant authority, please stop arresting journalists, stop threatening journalists. The best you can do is request us to intervene if there is any journalists that have infringed on your rights.
Now, if I want to pick you on something you talked about, you explained, you said even United Nations, they've come up to say there's no press freedom. To what extent can this negate our duties as journalists?
That's why the awareness matters a lot. That's exactly what we are doing now. For the fact that we are already aware that there's no total press freedom in the entire world, not just Nigeria, it's all over. We have had cases where some journalists were killed. Do you understand? Last week, a journalist was killed over this Russia-Ukraine issue because he was trying to do some story then. Yes. But then this time he was on vacation. He was not even on duty. They killed him simply because some issues that happened previously. So for United Nations to recognize the fact that there is no press freedom today, it means that something is up. And then we must keep talking about it until we have total press freedom.
Okay. As chairman and somebody that is very vast, you were traveled and all of that. Now, being on the seat of the Edo State NUJ has also taken you to World Affiliation of Journalism and what we're talking today now. Targeting of journalists today worldwide, like the UN, is coming up, frivolous to say that there's no press freedom. Why do you think that? Because you said that at times the stories carry. Why do you think that journalists are mostly targeted? Don't you think that it's because of propaganda? Society and many government officials or contrary government or opposition feel that journalists are surrogates to the government in power. That most of the time they publish or they write stories that are like propaganda that are not completely true. Is there any way to control this other side? Because the aggression towards journalists is becoming a global thing.
Let me quickly come in here. We have had some issues here where every story you see on the internet, people say it was carried by journalists. Okay. Especially the one that has to do with propaganda.
Yes.
Do you understand?
Yes.
So such stories are not really from journalists. Because for you to, journalist is a profession. Journalism is a profession of its own.
Yes.
You must earn it. It's not something that because you can read and write does not make you a journalist. But you have what we call street journalists. Their duty is to pick up their phones, pick up their cameras, and record events. But we are saying that if you belong to that school of thought of those who can record, why not send some of those information you have to a confirmed journalist who will now do in-depth investigation before turning it out to the public? But what we see here is people just wake up, they write stories, they put on the internet, and then the thing now returns back to say, oh, it was written by a journalist.
No, but sir, is propaganda part of journalism? Because there are some people that will not.
No, propaganda is a course, but not the one that is read in school.
Okay, it's a course that's not read in school.
Yes, because propaganda is where you bring out frivolous information. You want to defend yourself in a negative way.
Or you want to defend a particular.
Then propaganda is when you just look at somebody who is standing, you say, this one had the pen. This one, he thief 2 years ago. We are nothing like that.
No, we are looking at you are being too grassrooted. We are looking at journalism vs government functionary, because most people think that journalists are surrogates to government in power.
No, there are different sets of journalists.
Yes, sir.
You have some under the employment of government.
Yes.
You have some who are on individual investigative level,
like freelance.
Then you also have some too who are engaged by individuals who have companies that has to do with journalism.
Good.
Radio, television, and newspapers. So for us in Edo State, for instance, Edo Broadcasting Service, journalists here are employed by government. The Nigerian Observer, journalists there are employed by government. You also have some in the Ministry of Communication, and then you also have some in Edo Communication Organization, which is now like an affiliate of the Ministry of Communication and Orientation in Edo State. So our duty when we are engaged to work in the media, we also have our roles to project programs and policies of government. That's for those who are under government payroll. The same thing like lawyers. You also have some lawyers who are also under government payroll and they work with the Ministry of Justice. Their duty is to defend the policies
of the government
and programs of governments that are under litigation.
Okay.
Chairman, sir, you see, I'm so happy you're here for the fact that based on this next question I'm going to put across to you, based on the fact that you've become a household name, especially because of your program, Crime Watch. Even diasporans, they are proud of you. They talk about you. They are online steadily watching your program, Crime Watch, and you're so vast in that aspect of your job. Now, we have this issue. I'm asking this question because you are the #1 journalist in Edo State, state chairman, NUJ Edo State. So you are in a better position to be able to profile not a total solution, but a little insight into what the solution can be. Nigeria has become one of the countries where journalists are murdered and nothing happens. The murderers are not brought to justice. In 2009, Bayo Owu, assistant news editor of The Guardian, was shot dead by unidentified assailants and he was allegedly killed for his political reporting. In 2012, Eneche Akogu, a reporter and cameraman with Channels TV, was shot while on duty. Fidelis Ikwebe, a freelance journalist, was abducted and murdered while on duty. Others are Nathan S. Debak, Sunday Giyang Bede, Okeze Amaoben, Sam Umfia John, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. What do you think that from our own part, our journalists, what measures can be put in place? What can we do to stem this tide? Because over 10 journalists have been murdered, if I'm to trace it to even the time of Delegiwa, and nothing has been done till date. Nobody has been prosecuted and brought to book.
Well, Joy, it's a societal problem. It's a national problem. We have so many unresolved murder cases. Investigation will start and end. You will not see the outcome. So it's just like what happens to an individual who has just been killed and then somebody was suspected, arrested, investigated, and charged to court? And 3-4 months later, you find the person in the street. You find this kind of situation everywhere. It's like a national situation. But it's quite unfortunate that we find ourselves this way. So it's just for us to pray and wish that this country stabilize in area of prosecution. It's so sad that somebody will be arrested, charged to court for murder and all others, and thereafter you find the person in the street. What is expected is extensive prosecution. But we have had cases too where some family members who are supposed to come forth for the prosecution will tell you, we are not interested. People who are supposed to come to the court to give evidence will tell you they are not. So when nobody is coming forth to the court to give evidence, what do you expect the judiciary to do? But again, we want to appeal to the federal government. There are processes of investigation. Now, we have gone into scientific investigation. I was in the States and I went to some area where certain things happened. Do you know that with blood stain of a suspect, somebody who came to murder another person in the house and got injured, they got the blood stain and it was used to arrest the person? Because they went to laboratory, analyzed, and thereafter used that and getting the information of that person. From there, they processed it thereafter and got the person arrested. But we don't have that here. The kind of investigation we have here is crude. Trial by error. I be the person hide for here. Okay, we'll try. I be hide for the back. We'll try. That's the style we have. But in the Western world, they will just tell you where the person is. Do you even know that today in this country, we don't even have cameras to trace criminals? It's quite unfortunate. But these are things that are doable. So if the relevant authorities, they are watching this program, even if not being done by federal government, a state can take it up to say, okay, let's install CCTV facilities across the state so that if anything happens, we know where to start it from.
Is there anything journalists themselves could do to be able to stem the tide?
We have started that. Even in our own premises, we have. At our level, we have over 16 cameras covering the entire press center in Benin. May God not let anything happen. We know where to start the investigation from. So if we can do that at that level, I expect that other relevant areas, local government administration, state administration, federal, corporate individuals, and other persons should have this so that if anything happens, they know where to start from.
It is believed that press freedom is an essential pillar to democracy, the giving democracy. How true is this assertion?
Very true, because if there is no press, I don't think there will be democracy today. Because we all came out then, as at then, some of us were just coming up in the job. When the issue of having this democracy came, between 93 to say Babangida must go, you remember, and thereafter Shonakan came, and thereafter Abacha came, and then Abdusalam came, and then gave us democracy. Since 1999, Nigeria, we have had unhindered and uninterrupted democratic government. And it's 24 years today. By May 29 this year, it will be 24. I mean, this month, it will be 24 years in democracy. That's Nigeria. So what I'm trying to say is, we in the press, we have helped. We have also opened up so many areas, corruption. We have played our role as the watchdog of society, and then, though it might be a bit stressful because threats come in, but there are occasions that you must let some stories out. And you know what we now do? We now compile investigation and send to the authority. That's the journalism.
Yeah.
you compile your investigation, and you dispatch this investigation to some authorities for them to work on, and thereafter it becomes public. Do you know that journalists too will work hand in hand with security agents because they need us?
Yeah.
There are some information that will be handy that the journalists will have that a top security notch will not have. So they need us to help them, and then we work together. The system must be sanitized by both journalists, security agents, and the entire populace.
Now, sir, you know, you have vast experience and all of that. If, by the grace of God, you are appointed governor, or if you become a state chief executive officer, what would you do that would be different with all of your experience, crime-wise, and stabilizing the profession where you are from? Because out of the abundance of, they see the problem we have in Nigeria, that most potentials die because they are not privileged. They are not given privilege to be accentuated.
Well, no. When you are head, in a state, you have
If appointed
limitations.
as head of state, or governor of,
Not appointed, maybe
if
elected,
you're elected,
because there's no way anybody
if
can be
you're
appointed in
if you're
Nigeria
elected,
today.
if you're elected head of state,
It's by election.
so if you're
You
elected head of
understand?
state or
No,
governor.
ordinarily one need to rejig the judiciary,
yes,
because that's very
I didn't get that,
important.
sir.
It's key.
Rejig.
One need to rejig
the
Judiciary.
the judiciary.
Okay.
Yeah, because you have an arm of the judiciary whose duty it is to say this one has case to answer or not,
Okay.
and that's Department of Public Prosecution, DPP.
Yes,
Yes, their duty is to look at case files and see who is supposed to be charged properly or who is supposed to be discharged. Do you understand? You must rejig that aspect, because we have had cases too where across the country there will be interference in that part, and before you know it, some persons are left on the hook. So if they don't recommend that this person should be charged properly, the court cannot sit to look at such cases. That is the key. So that point must be rejigged, and thereafter you have cameras everywhere. And then as a leader, you must even know what is going on in Ugbeoho from your bedroom. You must know what is going on in Esako from your bedroom.
Or Emu.
Or Emu or Wesa. You will know all these things. Very easy. So when you have this, then there must be a special squad that will be positioned in strategic places, heavily armed, to respond to distress call.
So as the state executive of
There must be
State,
communication.
as the state executive of Edo State journalism or whatever the
Yeah.
institution
Of the NUJ.
of the NUJ, well, have you? What can you say? Is there any press freedom? Have you faced pressure in terms of performing your duties?
As far as we are concerned, yes, we have had press freedom. We have also had it in a negative way,
Okay.
where threats will start coming in,
Yes.
but not from government.
Okay.
I must be very frank with you. Since I came in, I haven't heard anybody call me to say, please stop this story.
Okay.
Do you understand? Because our duty is, if we have story A, we must also find out from the other person who is at the other end. That's balanced reportage.
Good.
But the situation where somebody will muzzle you to say, this story, we don't want to see it, it must not be used, haven't hardly seen or heard of that.
From government
So
quarters.
from government quarter, because to them, according to what the governor keeps saying, I have nothing to hide. So
Okay,
that
now-
was why at a point people were attacking us to say, oh, we are reporting this, we are reporting so much about government. I said, okay, all these stories, can we not go to sites to see?
Verify.
That's what we call I saw. We keep saying he saw that. I said, let us go, and I saw the stories. And then do you know that we went around most of the project sites across Edo State?
Very.
They were well reported, and that's the best way to go. So if you hear anything, try and make sure that your eyes see before publication. So in Edo State, we have this style. We have finished the first batch. We want to continue with the second batch. What is it? Let us go around this project. People are saying, oh, the governor has finished building secretariat. Has he finished building the secretariat? We will go there. Oh, 1, 2, 3 have been built. 1 is ongoing. That's a story. People are saying the College of Agriculture in Igorahi is already completed. Whose duty it is to go and say whether it's completed or not is the journalist. So we have done all this, and then we are still doing it. It's part of our responsibility, and we'll continue to do it.
Now, I want to paint you a scenario, sir.
Yes.
For example, I have a story. I have I've carried out my investigation, and my facts are real. They are there. And there comes this command from certain quarters. If that report is released, heads will roll.
Okay, let me tell you the
country
news
will go
time.
into chaos.
I know what you're talking about. Let me.
No, I want to ask
okay,
you.
we are
I
talking
want
about
to ask
national
you,
security.
whether national or state, but if such is the case, is there anything, sir, legally, constitutionally, that can stop me from coming out with my report in certain situation? I'm talking about press freedom now. Is there anything that can stop me constitutionally, legally, from publishing my reports?
Thank you for bringing this. There's what we call state security.
Okay.
There's what we call national security.
Okay.
There's what we call local security. As a journalist, we are not also trained to use our job to cause crisis.
Okay.
As a journalist, we are not also trained to use the profession, to cause war or conflict. There are some stories you hold as a journalist. You look at it, something will tell you that if I publish this story, there's going to be crisis. Wisdom demands that you hold on with such story, because by the time crisis comes, everybody will be consumed. I'll give you an example. You go somewhere and then they say that one community, you got a story that some persons from community A invaded community B and had the leader of that community murdered. You can write the story by not saying who did the murder. You can yes, a community leader has just been murdered by unknown persons. It is the police, it is the security agents that will tell you who carried out the murder, not a journalist.
Okay.
The reason is, by the time you say a leader of community A was the one who invaded community B, had the man shot, he was dismembered, and all, then you have not told community B to prepare for war and invade the other community. You have caused crisis. So to us, we believe that you must also use the journalism profession to promote peaceful coexistence, to promote peace, to promote unity and love. So that brings to what we call national security. You can't say because you are a journalist you undermine national security. No.
Or state security.
Yes. Okay. Why is it that during court martial over issue that had to do with coup, you must know that many occasions journalists are arrested?
Many.
Do you understand?
Yes.
Because to them, to the military as at that time, they undermined national security. So the advice is, as a journalist, try as much as possible to use the profession to promote one, unity, peace, love, and peaceful coexistence. That's it.
Could it be that there are some journalists that go too far in being
You find it in every profession, not only in journalism profession. You find it everywhere.
Yes.
Some go extra mile,
Yes.
Unconstitutionally,
Yes.
Unduly. You find it in the security agents, judiciary, the medical, everywhere you find this kind of thing. That's why in every profession you have ethics and disciplinary committee. Their duty is to watch out for their colleagues who are going astray, bend them and put them on the right track.
If you hear anything, cite it before publication to avoid propaganda. That's what you said.
Yes.
So now, as we begin to am I right? As we begin to look at this first segment, can you just put a word across our, in relation to our Sudanese evacuees? You have vast traveled and all of that. It's good for us to hear from you too.
Well, it's quite unfortunate what's happening in Sudan today.
Yes.
Because I was actually in Washington State 2 weeks ago when I read about this Sudanese situation. I think it's just an ego, two generals, two commanders who want to really know who is in charge of the country, and then they started fighting. It's not war yet. It's just a normal conflict because it hasn't really got into a war. You know, don't forget too that Sudan just came back from war,
Yeah.
civil war. They just came out,
Mm.
and now you now have South
Southern
Sudan,
Sudan, yeah.
and so the issue is they need to return back to the round table and get themselves resolved. But for our Nigerians, as at the last time I checked, the Egyptian border has been opened because they share boundary with Egypt.
Yeah.
And then I also got to know that Saudi Arabia brought in their flight, big Boeing, where some Nigerians so quickly ran into it and they accepted them. You know, and then
That's great.
a lot of evacuees are already in Sudan. And as I speak now, most Nigerians have already found their way into Egypt, and some have arrived in Abuja, and the evacuation continues. So all I can say is to appeal to the federal government to intensify more efforts in ensuring that no Nigeria is attacked or wounded or killed in Sudan.
So as we mark World Press Freedom Day today, and as the number one journalist in Edo State, your last word.
Well, all I can tell our colleagues who are practicing in Edo State, in Nigeria, and the entire world is let us keep balancing our stories. Let us continue to swallow the fire so that other members of the public will drink water. So I wish every Nigerian journalist best of the World Press Freedom Day.
We'd like to take a break here. We have a talking with the number one journalist in Edo State, Comrade Festus Alege, Chairman, Edo NUJ, Edo State Chapter. And it's been wonderful having you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And very soon we're going to bring you back again. I believe you oblige us.
Thank you, no problem.
Thank you, sir. Quickly, we'll take a break now. When we return, we'll discuss the Sudan situation. Don't go away. Thank you for staying with us.